graduate of the Bob Leach School of Driving. Bob Leach is my dad. He's a great driver. It can be a little irritating to drive behind Bob Leach in town because he's always driving under the speed limit. But on an icy day, you have to hope that every other driver on the road is Bob Leach. His approach reminds me of the slow food movement. Slow down, savor, maximize the experience. His taglines would be, slow down, you're not going to a fire, or slow down, you'll live longer. Actually, those could be the taglines for the movement that I'm promoting today. We could call it the Pat Leach School of Reading. But instead, let's call it slow reading. Slow down, savor, maximize the experience. You know, when I look out on this audience, I see a lot of people who respond to problems by doing things, and clearly doing some pretty effective things. Slow reading looks inward, and it looks a lot like doing nothing, but it's preparing our internal soil for growth and good work. Basically, slow reading means investing the time to read challenging books with undivided attention. It's not really about reading slowly. But it is one of those things where something that's right in front of our noses, something that we probably take for granted, can make a huge difference. The idea of slow reading didn't start with me. Other people have wanted to start these movements in the past. But here's why our slow reading movement will be successful. We're going to promote reading as something that goes beyond a solitary activity that we love. We're going to promote reading as a collective activity where we maximize the experience by tilling our internal soil, preparing our better civic selves, and getting ready to do good work together. Research shows that readers live longer, that they're more likely to vote, and that they develop a stronger sense of empathy, developing better civic selves. Now, I don't want to imply, by any stretch, that I've become any kind of saint through slow reading, but I have had terrific experiences of feeling like I lived in a story that happened continents away, or that I saw the world through the eyes of someone very unlike me through slow reading. When we immerse ourselves in a book, it's like we open a window through which new ideas can come in. There's something about the stillness created by reading a book that creates a more vibrant mind. I worry because studies show that Americans are doing less of this kind of literary reading, less and less, and yet more and more. We need people whose minds have been stretched and strengthened and opened. I recently finished the novel The Sympathizer. It's a spy novel about a double agent. It's also a book about the Vietnam War as seen by a Vietnamese man. I won't think about that war or the refugees who came here afterwards the same way after reading that book. It probably took me 10 or 12 hours to read The Sympathizer, 10 or 12 hours immersed in that man's life. I don't spend 10 or 12 hours in conversation in a year with some of my favorite friends. Think of the impact of 10 or 12 hours in conversation with somebody. But really, that's what reading a book is. That author has shaped his or her story for you to take in over time. Not that there's anything wrong with Twitter exchanges and Facebook and binge TV watching and movies. This isn't an either or, it's an and. I think we also might want to take a moment to reflect on how fortunate we are to live in this democracy where an informed population is considered a public good and where our public schools teach all children, rich and poor, male and female. And you know that I couldn't be here talking about an informed population and education without mentioning a terrific American institution, the public library. Thank you. Thank you. We learn to read in public schools for free. And for the rest of our lives, we have access to books in all formats for free through your tax-supported public library. It's the perfect intersection of impact with affordability. My dream is that cool kids, nerds, social butterflies, engineers, dancers, a lot of people in khakis and blue polos will claim this power of slow reading, of maximizing the experience by choosing challenging books that bend our brains and have us feeling like we've grown some kind of metaphorical garden between our heart and our brain through slow reading. I looked into a way of reading these very books about 25 years ago. I was the supervisor of the South Branch Library on South Street here in Lincoln when a dear older woman came in one day and said she was looking for a librarian to talk with her church book group about the American Library Association Notable Books list. She was the kind of person you don't say no to. So I said yes. And then I learned that this annual list is 26 books. 12 fiction, 12 nonfiction, 2 poetry. And over the years, I've kind of fallen in love with reading the books on this list. It's announced in January and takes me till about October to get most of them read. And a lot of my friends can't believe that I don't exercise free reading choice for 9 months out of the year. But it's worth it. Every year, this list has me reading books that I hadn't heard about, terrific books. As we think about how polarized our society has become, we also have to think about how we self-select and how we narrow the news and information that we take in. Through reading the books on this list, I get outside of my usual reading grooves. Sometimes I find that I am confronted with something new to learn, something new to think about, maybe spend some time with some characters I don't especially like. But I like to think that doing this has led me to consider, experience, and sometimes truly even value a point of view that's not my own. Some of the notable books have been sort of life-changing for me, and I think about them almost every day. For instance, Susan Cain's Quiet, a book about introverts in a world that's ruled primarily by extroverts. Her description of a personality type that's characterized by the need to sometimes just be quiet and alone and just take things in really resonated with me. She gave voice to my feeling that being an introvert isn't about disliking people. It's about a set of characteristics that benefits extroverts as well. Or the book, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. He's a Nobel Prize-winning economist who studies how we make decisions. I was afraid this book would be a dry read, what I call all cornflakes, no milk. But no, it's fun, it's engaging. His research shows that we way overestimate how well we understand the world, and we way underestimate how biased our own thinking is. If you read just one book in the next 6 months, make it Thinking Fast and Slow. I confess, I forget a lot of the books I read. I talk about books a lot, and that helps, but I forget a lot of plots, and I forget a lot of endings. What I do remember is how a book made me feel, and I remember images. Now, some of those are ridiculous. The scene of a man shoplifting fresh salmon from a grocery store by sticking it down the front of his pants. Some of them are sublime. The feeling created by a new housekeeper in a motherless home and that she whistles while she works makes all the difference. Others a little bit mind-bending. How would our planet recover and respond if one day all of the humans on the planet just poof, disappeared? Some have been challenging. I really never thought about what life was like for German women at the end of World War II when systematic rape followed the fall of Berlin. And one of the most compelling books from this year's list, Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, begins with the image from a lynching. And how does a father prepare his son for a world in which that is our heritage? My hunch is that just now, as I was talking about those images, some of your thoughts were wandering toward mind-shifting moments in your own reading. So I would like for all of us to take a moment quietly together, and I invite all of you to reflect on those books and those images. Slow down, savor, maximize the experience. It's not by accident that the Nazis burn books and that ISIS destroys libraries. Books hold power. In medieval times, the church considered books sacred and referred to them as miraculous objects. I look at all of you today, here to think about how do we bring people together? And I do see the start of a slow reading movement that will reclaim the power of those miraculous objects. We're going to maximize the experience by understanding that together we're tilling our internal soil. We're readying ourselves for action so that together we can do the work of bringing people together. Slow down, savor, maximize the experience. We'll be building and nurturing our most civic and civil selves so that together we create a more civil world. Thank you. Thank you.